In this video, we're going to study something called the hierarchy of biological organization. And this is simply a way of studying biology by studying things from the simplest to the most complex part of biology. So we're going to start off by taking a look at this hierarchy together. So remember that we started off by looking at atoms. And atoms are non-living, but atoms can combine together to make compounds and molecules. And all that stuff there, again, is considered non-living. But eventually, the atoms and molecules and compounds can combine to make these things called cells. It makes cell parts, but then it makes cells. So organelles are the cell parts, and we get cells here. And then starting from the cell, we're basically now living. So going forward, cells to cells and beyond is considered living. So cells, that's our first living part here. Then many cells come together to make tissues. Many tissues will come together to make organs. Many organs will make organ systems. Many organ systems will make the organism. Many organisms, so many, for example, many deer organisms, will make a population. And then populations will come together to form communities and ecosystems. And then the communities and ecosystems, especially the ecosystems, they'll come together to make the biosphere, which is basically anywhere on planet Earth where there's life. And so in grade 9, you focus primarily on this part here. You focused on ecology. You focused on studying the populations, the communities, the ecosystems, and the biosphere. But in grade 10, the biology really consists of the cellular biology all the way up to the organism, including the organ system here. So this is our primary focus. As a biologist, you can kind of decide where you want to focus your studies. That's the beauty of really any science course that you take. In grade 9 and 10, you study kind of general science. You get a taste of everything. But as you go into higher years, you get to specialize and choose what you want to focus on, your interests on. So the whole point of this video is just to go over the general parts of the hierarchy of biological organization. We're going to take a look at each aspect, just give a brief definition and some examples. We're going to take a look at the cell, the tissues, the organs, the organ systems, and the organism. And then going forward, we're going to go and zoom into one at a time. We're going to look at the cell, then we're going to look at the tissue, then we're going to look at the organ, so on and so forth. Keep in mind they're all connected though, right? If you are an organism, if you are a living organism, you are made up of cells. And so if anything happens to your cells, your tissues are hurt, your organs are hurt, your organ systems are hurt, and then the organism is hurt as well. So everything's connected, even though we are studying things in a little bit of a disconnected way. We're just zooming in and then zooming out. So we're starting with the simplest part, the cell. The cell is the basic unit of life. In other words, the smallest living thing. There's many different types of cells that can exist. So for example, there's blood cells, there's nerve cells, there's bone cells, there's heart cells. But either way, the cell is the smallest living thing to exist. So the cell, here we have an animal cell. Here we have a plant cell. Okay, it's the same idea in plant and an animal. After that, many cells come together to make tissues. So many cells will come together to make tissues, and tissues basically do a specific function for the organism. So many muscle cells will come together to form muscle tissue that can help to move a limb, like your arm, for example. The main tissues in animals that we're going to study later on are things called connective tissue, like blood. Blood is actually connective tissue. Nervous tissue, epithelial tissue, and muscle tissue. So these are the main ones we'll be studying in animals. Plants also have tissues. Okay, so the idea is many cells come together to make tissues. There's many different types of tissues that exist. These are the main 4 tissues in animals, and plants have tissues as well. Tissues will then come together to make organs. So a variety of tissues coming together to do a specific function, you call that an organ. So for example, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, and some connective tissue might come together to make the heart. And so the heart's an organ. It also has the heart's an organ which helps pump blood throughout the body. It's made up of a variety of different tissue, as I already mentioned, and all of these work together to accomplish that function of pumping blood throughout the body. So the organ is the heart, and the heart, which is the organ, is made up of many different tissues: muscle, nerve, and connective tissue, for example. Okay, so all the organs in your body, they're made up of different types of tissue. That's This is the case for animals, and it's also the case for plants. Plants also have organs. So just one example of an organ in a plant would be the flower. Flower is a reproductive organ in the plant. So then all the organs, they're capable of coming together and working in groups as well, making their own team of organs. And so a team of organs that work together to do a specific function is called an organ system. So for example, the digestive system. Um, the digestive system is made up of several organs like jaws, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, liver, pancreas plays a role there too, salivary glands, which are tissues, organs. All those together, they work together to make up the digestive system to help you break down food, digest food, so you can extract energy from your food. But again, the idea is that you have many organs that come together to make an organ system. And so the human body has about 11 organ systems, and we're not going to study each one in grade 10, unfortunately, but you get to study more in grade 11 and grade 12. And as you continue your studies in biology, we're going to focus on circulatory, digestive, and the respiratory system, and we'll go over the general function of the other systems that exist. But each of these systems is made up of organs, teams of organs. Organ systems also exist in plants, not just animals. And then once you put all your organ systems together, well, then you have the entire organism. Okay. So all of your organ systems make you the human organism. And here we have all the organ systems of a zebra make, well, the zebra organism. And this is the case for plants as well. When you take all their organ systems together, you are now at the organism level. Okay. To really understand the organism, you must understand its organ systems. To understand the organ systems, you must understand the organs. To understand the organs, you need to understand the tissues. And to understand the tissues, it all comes right back down to the cell. If your cell is sick, your tissues are sick, your organs are sick, your organ system is sick or are sick, and therefore you, the organism, is sick. Okay. So just another little reminder, we've seen this before. Organisms can be unicellular or multicellular. Multicellular organisms, multi meaning many, they are organisms made up of many cells. For example, plants and animals are multicellular organisms. Some organisms actually exist as the individual cell and they don't group together. Those are called unicellular organisms, uni meaning one cell. And one example of that would be bacteria. So bacteria are actually unicellular organisms. So in this video, we saw the hierarchy of biological organization. We did mention that everything is made up of atoms, and we could break down the atom even smaller if you wanted to, but that's where we started. We started in chemistry, looking at the atom, electrons, protons, neutrons making up an atom, the atom coming together to make molecules and compounds. But then eventually those molecules and compounds come together to make cell organelles, and therefore cells. And it's really when you get to the cell that you're considered a living thing. So at the cell, you are considered living. And then the cell, several cells together make tissues, several tissues together make organs, several organs make organ systems, the organ systems together make the organism. You then have several organisms, so many of these make a population of those. Then you get many populations, make communities. Communities interacting with non-living things in their environment are ecosystems. Then many ecosystems together will lead to what's called biomes, and then biomes will eventually lead to the biosphere, which is anywhere on the planet where there's life. So as I mentioned, in grade 9, you focused primarily on those aspects there: population, community, ecosystem, biome, and biosphere. But in grade 10, we're really going to focus on the cell all the way up to the organism, focusing on how all these parts are connected to each other.